Hi, Kat. Good evening.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. Thanks so much for
Oh,
asking me.
thanks. Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for jumping on. The first thing I always ask everybody to do, would you mind just introducing yourself and reminding the listeners where they might know you from or where they can find you if they don't already know who you are?
Of course. So, my name is Kat, and I am a small animal vet in a first opinion practice, which means that the majority of my life, I am the kind of vet that you will go and see for vaccinations and vomiting and diarrhea. And, I work in the practice down the road. I also have a side hustle as being a vet in the online space on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and TikTok is where you can find me, where I talk about stuff that interests me. My passions are my profession. I love being the vet. I love the vet profession. I really enjoy being a positive voice for us in that online space. I like talking about nutrition, which is what we're going to chat about this evening.
Mhm.
I love talking about, well, correcting misinformation, of which there's an enormous amount in the pet space, particularly in the nutrition world, unfortunately. And other things that interest me: animal welfare, health related problems. So that's what I do.
Amazing. And do you have any of your own pets?
I do, yeah. I have two cats and a dog. The cats are, just cats, perfectly fine. Uh, but absolutely, their noses were put out of joint last year when we gained a Labrador, so they're still not over it, to
Okay.
be honest. And we also have a Labrador who's just over a year called Maple, who's wonderful. She is the best and easiest dog. I think if you want a good dog, get a Labrador.
Nice. I think I've seen her. You put her on your Instagram sometimes, don't you? The name
She
rings a
does
bell.
feature sometimes. She features sometimes when I need her to. I use my animals to my advantage as and when required. They're
As
very
do
good
I.
at having tablets given and nails clipped or whatever it is that I need to demonstrate today.
That's very handy. Unfortunately, my dog is not quite as biddable. I have a bloodhound, so he will sort of be like, "Well, if you pay the tax, I will consider it. But if I'm not fancying it, then probably no." And that's pretty much his personality. But I love him for it. Um,
Wow, you
so
don't see
just to
many
kind
of
of,
them.
do you know what, Kat? The amount of times someone will stop me in the street and say, "Wow, you don't see many of them." Honestly, 5 to 10 times a day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
when
I'm
he was
sorry to be a
growing,
cliche.
that's okay. When he was growing, um, I actually had people shout out their car windows at me. He's going to be big every two
Thanks for letting me know.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I think he will be. You're correct. But yeah, I don't know why I started talking about that. But anyway, um, so, just to kind of put things into context for today, we've already had Alyssa on the podcast to talk about nutrition in terms of the impact on behavior. So, we talked a bit about things like gut health, and what being underfed or overfed and blah blah blah, and all the things that can do to your animal's diet. And Alyssa focuses primarily on dogs, but I would love to talk to you today about whatever animals you feel comfortable talking about, and generally from like a veterinary perspective and a science based food perspective, I guess a bit more about pet food because there's so much to unpack. So give me a little synopsis of what modern day pet food, the modern pet food market is like.
So, modern day pet food and the modern day pet food market are actually two very different beasts. Because modern day pet food is amazing. We have got decades of research into what our pets' nutritional needs are, right from the macronutrients of carbs and protein and fat down to the micronutrients of iron and magnesium and vitamins and that kind of thing. So the knowledge that we have about the nutritional needs of our animals are phenomenal, and that knowledge is actually in the vast majority of pet foods that are available on the market, because when a pet food says that it is complete and balanced, that's legal wording that means that that pet food is genuinely, to the best of the company's knowledge and ability, complete and balanced on a micro and macronutrient level, and those levels are based on an enormous amount of research which is constantly ongoing and constantly updated. So we are able to nourish our animals better than we have ever been at any point in human evolution and history. And we're able to do that in an affordable, convenient way in an enormous array of formulations. Because any diet can be complete and balanced. The pet food market is completely different. So whereas pet food and nutrition is science and evidence-based, and there's some incredible people doing some phenomenal things quietly in the background so you'd never know about it, which is why the marketing is allowed to take hold, because pet food marketing is very different. Pet food marketing would have you believe that your dog is really a wolf. Kibble has only been around for 50 years, so how can it possibly be the right thing to feed them? Your cat must eat, your cat is a carnivore and must only eat protein. Carbohydrate is not essential and therefore is useless. You're going to kill your animal if you feed it this, that, and the other. The marketing is dreadful, truly appalling, and something that really winds me up, because it is so wrong and is doing a disservice to the pet owners that these pet food companies and marketers are supposed to be looking after. So yes, two very different beasts.
So I used to work for a pet retailer, which I will not name, but once I start telling you something, you might know who I'm talking about. But I'll get in trouble if I named them. And they claim to be like a nutrition specialist. Okay. So when I went there, we all had this mandatory training, and it was like, it needs to be 80. So this is, well, dog and cat food, but we did mostly, like, the education started with dog food. It needs to be 80% of the ingredients are pure protein, no animal meal. We don't want grains. We don't want, I can't remember what else it was, but it was like that. And it was like all of the supermarket brands, Royal Canin, Hills, all of that, like, they're all crap. We don't feed any of that stuff. And the same, for cats. And I really believed it, because it makes sense if you said it to somebody who doesn't know any better, right? That they're like, oh yeah, you need to have it really high in meat and blah 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 blah. And then I did my master's degree, and we had like a whole 3 lectures or something on nutrition. They were like, basically everything you've been told is crap. And in terms of behaviourally, at least, we basically have no research to say that anything makes any difference as long as the animal is happy and healthy, you know? And I just felt really like, wow, I've worked at this place for like 2 years, and I've been regurgitating this stuff to my customers as I was trained to do, believing that it was fact, and it wasn't. It's really weird that you're allowed to tell people to do that. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
an
that
idea, don't
really.
say it, of who it is.
I don't actually, so it's fine. And it's just really sad that is, because yes, it is. It does sound obvious and simple, and really intuitive. So it does become quite counterintuitive to then say, well, actually, it doesn't have to be the majority of meat. That's, I know your cat eats mice or a cat eats mice in the wild, but that's not how we can or want to feed them in captivity. That's really sad. And then you get exposed to a really good quality level of education from someone who clearly knows what they're talking about, and within 3 hours you had turned on a sixpence. And that, I think, actually in a microcosm is what's wrong, is that there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions saying the same thing, because it goes with the zeitgeist. It sounds really obvious, but actually these people have no decent nutritional education in the space, and are just regurgitating what they've been told by other people. When you listen to the genuinely educated nutritionists in the field who have PhDs and masters and board certification in nutrition, and you start listening to them talk, and you hear the way that they present their arguments and their evidence, you just think, right, well, this is clearly correct, because these people obviously are able to communicate. And that's the big problem. And I think that's that is the reason, particularly why from the veterinary perspective, we're often viewed as being very poorly educated in nutrition, because essentially our opinions do not align with this populist narrative. The reason our opinions do not align with the populist narrative is because we are fortunate enough to have education right from the get-go from the very best people in the field. And that does not necessarily need to be nutritionists. It's clinicians, it's medical specialists, it's neurological specialists, it's behavioural specialists. Nutrition is woven throughout the courses. And so that's why the veterinary opinion is so different. And one of the things that constantly frustrates me is people say, well, vets don't know anything about nutrition. My vet said that I should feed this and I shouldn't feed raw, and there's a problem with it. And then everybody gets online and goes, yes, my vet said the same, so did mine. But at no point does anybody go, this is interesting. These highly educated, passionate animal people are all saying the same thing. Maybe, just maybe, there's something in it. That little tiny leap is never made. But it's, I'd be really interested as to why that pet shop taught you like that, because, you'd think if they were selling pet food, there would be somebody with some decent degree of nutritional knowledge within it. Maybe there isn't, and that's really bad. But then, and then my cynical side says, well, I wonder what the markup is. What's the profit margins on something like Royal Canin versus something like a Chi-Chi 80% protein brand? What is the difference? Is that the reason why? I'm speculating, and it's I get a lot of accusations about being all about the money from my perspective. So I would hate to do it to anybody else, but I think it's a reasonable question.
They sell their own brand of pet food, so maybe that answers your question. Yeah. But we were frequently told, get people off whatever the vet is feeding them, unless it is a prescription diet, and even then it was very small in terms of what they would class as a prescription diet, only Royal Canin kidney and liver or whatever they are. That was the only ones, don't touch those, everything else, let's get them onto whatever. What you've touched on is something that I find in my area of the profession so much, is this inability to think critically sometimes and just say, where's that come from? Where's that information come from? And I don't know. I teach, and I love you guys if any of you are listening, but I lecture students 3 times a week. And sometimes I just think, wow, like the ability to critically think has gone down a lot. And maybe that's why.
Yeah, and it's not a shame. And again, that's so ingrained in those of us who have been fortunate enough to have a really good scientific education. I mean, like a master's in anything is just phenomenal. And the behaviour world and training world is very similar. There's a lot, it seems simple. Anybody can get a dog to walk on the lead. I can stop it chasing sheep. Just, hand me that electric shock collar. But there's a level of skill and nuance that is completely unappreciated. And also, I agree with you. I think that the scientific, this is going to sound so big-headed, but the scientific method, how we are trained as scientists and educated people, we don't appreciate that the skills that we learn along the way, like you say, that ability to critically think and say, what is the evidence, and then go and the ability that we're taught to do, to look at it and assess it for ourselves and decide whether it is something that we're prepared to follow up or not. And also the ability to appreciate nuance and uncertainty, I think is, again, it's really underappreciated in our world. And so when people say, like the really well-educated people will often sound like they don't know what they're talking about, I think, because they will say, the evidence tells us this. Yeah. And, in my experience, it's that. And my findings are such, which actually, I think to sort of like that's not fair.
Layperson.
Someone who isn't, to a layperson who isn't used to moving in our world, that sounds like I don't really know what I'm doing. The evidence says this, but I don't really know. Whereas, you get a dog trainer or, someone claiming to be a nutritionist online who goes, this is how you do it. I know the answer. This is bad. This is good. Go and do it. The messaging is so much more convincing to anybody who just takes these things at face value, which the vast majority of people would do. I would 100% do. And in other areas, like, I don't know, skin cream, where I'm desperate to find one that cures all my wrinkles, I'm almost prepared to listen to anybody if they tell me it's going to work. So it's really, really understandable, and it's a huge problem for people like us to try to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. You've touched on something in behavior. They'll say, "Why does my dog do this?" And I'll go, "I'll be honest with you, I don't know because I don't have." I say to them, "I'm not a mind reader, so I don't actually know the answer to that question." Whereas, like you say, someone who potentially is a bit more of a marketeer would say, "Ha, I've got a cure for you. It's X, Y, and Z." But my scientific brain has taught me to say, "Well, if you don't know for definite, why don't you just kind of experiment with a few things before you make a claim?" Yeah, it's a funny one. So, I'm going to tie the next two questions in because I actually think they're kind of related. Um, so, what are the kind of if somebody came to you and they said, "Hey, cat, I've got a dog or I've got a cat," what are the basic feeding guidelines and what are the sort of myths that you would say to them? Just don't worry about that. Just do X, Y, and Z.
Yes. Well, there's loads of them. I mean, I suppose the top one is my dog is a wolf. No, it isn't. My cat is a carnivore. That is true, but that doesn't mean that they only need to eat meat or shouldn't eat carbohydrates. Those are the big ones. The next one is you can 100% feed a kibble-based diet and your animal will be absolutely fine. That's what I feed my pets. And then there is, the other thing is people say, well, what food should I feed? What company should I use? And my honest answer most of the time is pick Hills, Proplan or Royal Canin. Pick one of them and get on with your day. And then people see me say that, particularly in the online space, and like, she has been bored by Big Kibble. There's only those three. And there's hundreds and hundreds of diets. But if I am as a professional, I'm going to stand in front of particularly an online audience where I can't go, well, here's the nuance, here's what the individualness, there are different diets. You could also feed bakers if you like, that would also get me lynched online. But it's a perfectly fine, complete and balanced, healthy diet for your pet. If that fits your budget, then that's fine. Off you go. It's made by Purina. They know what they're doing. But in terms of like the degree of research and specialism and testing and formulation and people who are behind it, it is those three. But there are lots of other options. But it's so confusing. If that's what I feed to my pets, because I'm like, these are the companies that I know and I trust, and I'm just not wading through anything else to figure it out. I've got far too much on to start doing that. So yeah, those are the big myths, and that's what my advice is. If somebody says now, if they sat down and said, well, I'm feeding this diet that I picked up in this pet shop, and I could be like, right, well, let's, I've got 10 minutes. Let's do the things that I would do to assess the quality of that diet, and we'll see. And if you want to feed it, that's absolutely fine. And that's the thing about the pet food market, is it because it is based on such phenomenal research, and most companies are doing it to a reasonable degree to some level. It doesn't really matter what you feed. Your pet is hugely unlikely to become nutritionally deficient. The biggest nutritional deficiency is obesity. Don't feed it too much, and that's 3/4 of the battle.
Hmm. Is there a risk with either dogs or cats or any other animal that if you get the wrong kind of food, that there's more of a propensity for obesity, or is that genuinely just sheer volume?
Well, I think this debate rages, doesn't it? And it rages in human nutrition as well. But I think at the bottom line is a calorie is a calorie. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. If you keep your calorie content to a reasonable level, you will be fine. And also, the other thing about pet foods is it's just like us. It's not the meals that make the difference, it's the snacks.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not the bowl, it's the Bonio and the dentist stick. Actually, I'm a big fan of dentist sticks, but it is things like that that make it's the crisps and the wine and the chocolate and the donut at 11 o'clock that make the difference for me, not my salmon with steamed vegetables in the evening.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I suppose some diets now come pre-portioned, like our fresh or raw foods. And I think they are potentially easier to not overfeed because they are in pre-portioned packaging. So you do see this online that, raw fed pets aren't overweight or fresh fed pets aren't overweight. That's not true. I see plenty of fat raw fed pets. However, I think they're probably, if there is something in that, it's because it's pre-portioned and it's quite expensive. So you can easily overfeed kibble. How much is in a scoop? Nobody knows. But, that, and then those pets that are on that diet often are on less treats because the owners have, and that's, completely fine. They're focused on a certain type of feeding. So kind of inadvertently, they're not, overindulging their pets because they've set themselves up for this more restricted but still very healthy, way of doing things. And that's absolutely fine because, that's completely, wonderful if that's what you've made the decision to do. But if your pet is a healthy weight, you're going to have such a positive impact on their health. Huge.
Absolutely. I've got a hack for anybody that isn't sure how to keep weight off their animal. It's get a giant breed, and then no matter what you feed them, they simply will not put on weight. No matter, oh, you're going to kill me for this, but like he gets poppadoms, he gets chips, and this dog does not put on weight. So honestly, because you just feed them bucket loads, and it just comes out the other side, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
it's the tiny pet that I feel sorry for their humans because you have to be so sparing, don't you, in what you give them.
Yeah, I
But
wish I
cheddar,
was a giant breed dog. That would be nice. I think that might be the way to live. You're absolutely right. I've never seen a fat Great Dane.
yeah,
So,
it's
I'm not
impossible.
really thinking
I
that before.
truly believe it isn't possible. We fight a constant battle to get weight on my dog. I mean, he's still got his testicles, and I'm led to believe that means they get weight off easier, right?
They have a higher
I don't know
metabolic
if
rate.
that's a
Yeah.
myth or yeah, yeah. But oh my God, I cannot get weight on this dog. But anyway, that's a different thing. So, what do you think are the most dangerous products or trends on the pet food market right now? Or, I don't know, if you think it's something not to do with food, I am open to that conversation as well.
So, in terms of the pet food market, I don't think we can fairly call anything dangerous because the other thing about the pet food market is actually pretty well regulated. Now, a lot of that regulation is done by the companies themselves, so you have to sort of trust that they are following the regs. Like, for example, raw food companies, I think they're the easiest ones to talk about within this space, have to batch test their diets for salmonella and levels of other bacteria before they go on sale. And one and that is a legal requirement for them, for part of the regs. And the assumption is that they probably are because, we do see recalls. We see recalls on all kinds of diets, but we don't see very many in comparison to the amount of diets on sale. There was a recent study by the FSA which has come out that's, highlighted some maybe concerning things, but, there's no sort of dangerous food really. I know people like to point the finger at rawhide. Rawhide is despised on the internet. I've been a vet for over 20 years. I've never seen a dog have problems eating rawhide. I've never pulled a rawhide out of an intestine or anything. So, but, I just like, that's fine if you don't want to feed rawhide. I'm not going to get involved in that debate. I think the danger comes from these people who don't know what they're talking about but have such huge audiences. And I'm sure you would say the same in the behaviour space. There's some incredibly popular behaviourists and trainers who just are dreadful. And again, in the nutrition space, there's people who are saying some awful things that, frightening pet owners, trotting out all kinds of rubbish, pushing people towards certain kinds of diets. And the only reason in the nutrition space, I'd be interested in your opinions on the behavioural space, but in the nutrition space, the only reason that those people aren't doing more damage to animals is because when the people go out and buy a commercially prepared diet of whatever formulation they want, it has been formulated to a standard that means that the animal is kept safe because there are extra regulations within there. So it doesn't matter what they're spouting. The world has set itself up to cushion any damage. But that's not the same in your world, though, is it?
No, I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. You can say, well, in episode 2 of this podcast, I was talking to Kerry from, I don't know if you follow Howl School for Dogs. She's
I
brilliant. You would
do. She's
adore
brilliant. I
her.
love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was here for episode 2 and we were talking about there's a trainer near me that tells people to spit in the dog's food before you feed
Oh,
them
God.
to, because then they will know that you are the dominant member of the family and all of this bollocks. So we're working on it. We're getting there, but it's slow progress. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary to do. Well, I mean, I was going to come on to vaccinations at the end of this because I sort of watch that conversation taking place, and I just wanted your opinions on it. But I guess that possibly is an example of bollocks being put on the internet. I don't know. Is there much research that says that vaccinations are as dangerous as some people claim they are? We wouldn't be giving them if they were, surely.
Oh, for goodness me, no. There's no evidence that vaccines cause harm, significant harm. Every medicine, if you want to give a medicine that has an effect, so has some sort of effect on your animal, it protects them against
Hmm.
disease, it takes away their pain, it protects them against parasites. If a medicine has an effect, it will have a side effect. The balance is how big is the effect versus how big is the side effect. Effects are very positive and huge, and side effects are very rare and often very individually based. If you want something that, doesn't have any side effects, give things homeopathy. And then the clue is like, well, why doesn't it have any side effects? Oh, yes, that's because it doesn't actually have any effects at all. So every medicine that's given is given on a cost benefit analysis, And
Hmm.
when it comes to vaccinations, they are a bit of a poster child for negativity, because that's the way of the world on the internet. It's very easy to say vaccines are dangerous, don't give them. And people are like, oh, yes, that's fine. What are they injecting into me and my animal? Oh, aluminium, that's terrible, but there's more aluminium in an apple than there is in a vaccine or something. So we do. And so the vaccines that we give to animals are safe, effective, brilliant. If you don't vaccinate your dog and you're all smug because they haven't got parvovirus, what you need to do is every time you meet a dog in the park, say thank you to that owner, because the reason your dog's not dead of parvovirus is because everyone else is vaccinated against parvovirus, and the herd immunity is keeping your dog from dying. So
Yeah.
don't be smug about it. Be thankful. And there's actually quite a lot of research into side effects of vaccines. It's constantly happening. We can, if you ever are, and one thing I would say to people who are listening is, if you are ever worried that your animal has had any sort of side effect from a medicine, whether you are sure about it or not, you can report that to the Veterinary Medicines Directorate, and it'll go down as a potential adverse reaction, and those are collated. And we know that a lot of adverse reactions don't get reported because it's a faff, and the animal's generally fine. Like, the most common adverse reaction is a small lump on your, I was going to say on your arm, but under the skin after they've had a vaccine. But there is safety built into the system, so we know enough of them. We know most reactions aren't reported, but the significant ones probably are. If I had a dog that had a vaccination and then the next day started to fit or died or something awful happened, I would 100% report that as an adverse reaction. Like, that kind of side effect after a vaccine is vanishingly rare. One in tens and tens of thousands. So it's probably a coincidence. But significant problems are reported. Minor ones are not. And so what that means is we're probably over-reporting significant problems and under-reporting minor ones. But the system is built, and this article is on the VMD website if anyone wants to read it. I'll try and send you the link. It's in there somewhere. So all of this stuff exists, but nobody talks about it because it's hard to find and buried in research and paperwork. It is built into the system that if we know side effects are underreported, so there is an assumption that there is more than we think there are, but there is safety built into the system. So if suddenly they start to get 2 reports, 3 reports of a dog developing itchiness or vomiting and diarrhea or something awful happening, dying, it's a sensitive switch. The alarm will be raised well before hundreds of dogs keel over. You probably only need a few, and they'll be like, hang on a minute, there's a pattern emerging here. We know there's underreporting, let's do something about it. And in terms of vaccinations, again, the figures are on the VMD website. It's tiny. 1 in 10,000 is, one in, I don't know, I don't have them off the top of my head, but they're really, really small, even for the dreaded L4, which actually isn't much worse than than L2, but, nobody has actually paid attention to it. It's something like for L4, I'll shut up in a minute, there's something like for L4
That's
and
right.
L2, it's like, I think, please don't quote me on this, but this is roughly right. It's something like, for every leptospirosis vaccination that contains 2 strains of lepto, something like there's 4 serious adverse reactions per 10,000 dogs, and that can be, you know, fitting or something like that. And for L4, there's 8 per every 10,000 dogs, which is twice as much. So it's twice as dangerous. But the proportion is still minuscule, and the amount of dogs that haven't died from leptospirosis, which isn't something you can easily treat with antibiotics. That's the other internet rumour. I mean, you do treat it with antibiotics, but you also treat it with several days of intensive care in hospital, and we lose a lot of them. So the ones that are treated with antibiotics and survive, they did get antibiotics. The ones that died, no one ever talks about them. So there's this. But that's where the rumours start, and that sounds terrifying. Twice as dangerous, right? That's going to go around the internet before somebody actually looks at the figures and figures it out. The risks are massively overblown, but it doesn't matter how many times you tell people that, until you're blue in the face. They won't, if they've decided they're not going to believe you, they don't believe you. And that's fine. If you come to me and you say, I don't vaccinate my dog because I don't believe in vaccines or I'm scared of side effects, I'll be like, I can talk to you about the pros and cons if you wish, that's fine, but if you've made your decision, I'm not going to fight you on it. It's not my pet, it's not my decision. My job is to make sure you're making an informed choice and then let you carry on. I'm not going to stand here and not let you out of the building until you've had a vaccine. That's not how it works.
That must be really hard, though, to have a patient in front of you that obviously you have a duty of care to, and know that you can't get somebody over that line. But I guess if it happens multiple times, you sort of make peace with it. I saw something on Facebook I have to tell you about, which I think is, you're probably going to be slamming your head on the desk. I don't know if you use Facebook, but unfortunately you comment on one post about a dog at some point saying, oh, just, try this behavior thing. And now my entire feed is like, it's just so unbearable. It's awful. And obviously we know that people love to slander their vets, and someone posted a picture of their invoice and it was just over $1,000. And it was like emergency parvo care, emergency parvo treatment. This seems outrageously expensive to me. What do you guys think? And it was like out of hours as well, like 4 o'clock in the morning. And like 99% of the comments were, well, if you just vaccinated your dog for parvo in the first place, you wouldn't be paying over £1,000 in veterinary bills. But actually that's pretty reasonable anyway, considering what a stupid decision you've made.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I see stuff like that all the time.
Complete bargain. And then it's actually quite lovely when the comments are like that. There's sort of slightly more sensible people on the internet than you think sometimes. But yeah, and it's really, that's just the truth of the matter. And even if you don't vaccinate, at least vaccinate when they're puppies and then vaccinate it when they're a year old. And then you can teaser test if you want to, that's fine. That is part of the WSAVA, which is the World Small Animals Veterinary Society, which is like a sort of a world body for vets, and they have committees, and on those committees sit the world leading people, the most educated people in that particular space. The vaccine committee released some new vaccine guidelines which have teaser tests in there as a legitimate option. So you 100% can do it if you would like, and you can ask your vet. I could take them, that's not a problem. The vast majority of pet owners, though, do actually trust us. So, I can't remember the last time I ran teeter bloods, because in the real world, people don't ask me for them because they're quite happy to take my advice, which is, let's vaccinate against the viral diseases, distemper, hepatitis, parvovirus once every 3rd year. Leptospirosis, not only can you not titer test for it, but you also, it is an annual vaccine anyway. And the vast majority of people are just, that's fine. Completely happy with it.
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's strange to me how some people have a very different relationship with their vet than what I do, because I chose my vet as a behaviourist first and a vet second because I'd worked with them before I had my dog as a behaviourist, and I knew how brilliant they were. And then as soon as I got Cheddar, I was like, that's where we're going. It's not the closest one, and all this, but that's where we went. And whatever they tell me to do, I will do it without a second of afterthought. And I know I'm sat here bitching about how people aren't critically thinking anymore, but I think it's a shame really that people don't have that level of trust, because they've, touch wood, never let me down yet.
Yeah.
You are supposed to be someone we trust and believe in.
Precisely. And that trust is so important and so valuable and goes both ways. You know, the vet has to trust you and you have to trust them. And if that relationship breaks down for whatever reason, you know, it might not be no fault of anybody's. I saw a client today who, wonderful people, they'd had a lump taken off their dog, the wound broke down, that broke down their relationship with that practice. But, you know, wound breakdowns happen to the best of us.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have lost that trust, that's fine. Go and find another practice and
Mm-hmm.
build that relationship. And that's what I love. It's one of the most important things to me as a vet, is that teamwork and communication between me and the client. And I need to be humble enough to say, I don't know this animal as well as you do. Tell me what you think is happening,
Mm-hmm.
and then together we'll work out if that is what's happening, and if so, and you're generally right, and then, you know, we'll figure out how to make it better or solve the problem or whatever it is. The teamwork is at the heart of that, and is so important. So I'm, you know, really delighted you've got a vet that you trust, because it's just vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Cedar Vets in Alresford if you're listening, which you probably aren't, but
Oh.
one day I'll get you listening. Um, so I mean, I asked you in the questions that I wrote earlier, but I think you've kind of covered it. Like, I asked what are your thoughts on raw feeding, but you sound pretty kind of ambivalent, like it's a valid way to feed, but
Well, one has to be ambivalent about raw feeding as much as one can these days, because if one expresses an opinion that is even a teeny tiny bit
yeah.
expressing some caution, you then spend a week mopping up the comments on the internet. Like last week, I posted about the FSA investigation, and I'm
Hmm.
still replying to comments now. Raw feeding, particularly, is something that people are often incredibly passionate and vocal about, and it's damaging, because, you know, you have to be able to discuss the pros and cons of things. You just have to. And
Hmm.
so I don't tackle it probably as often as I could or should online, because it's just exhausting.
Mm.
But we do discuss it in practice with our clients and just make sure that they are aware of those pros and cons and the safety around it. What food are you feeding? How have you picked it? All of this. And, you know, and then if they're comfortable with that and we're comfortable, that's fine. You crack on. The complete and balanced nature of diets can be achieved in any way, and raw is one of those. But if you were to ask my opinion, I would like, no, I wouldn't, it wouldn't even, I would never raw feed my own pets, ever. There's no advantage over a decent, complete and balanced kibble or wet food. There's no raw foods that meet the WSAVA requirements. We know they carry, I mean, inevitably they carry bacteria. They're raw meat, and that's not a risk I'm prepared to take for my pets or my family. However,
Hmm.
if you choose to raw feed, this is a free country. I'm not telling you not to. You know, every post I do about raw feed, I generally go, if you want to do this, that's fine. But that bit, you know, gets glossed over because there is such
Hmm.
passion in that community.
Yeah, I put a video on TikTok the other day. Uh, I don't know if you heard about the woke dog trainer thing that went round last week.
I did. The
So I
Muppet
sh
Professor did a marvellous post about it. But I'm
Yes,
sure
lots
yours
of
is great. I haven't
people.
seen it, but I'll go find it.
No, no, it's fine. Loads of people did replied back to it, and I just made a video. It, I'm one of these people that bites back. Maybe I shouldn't be, but whatever. So I made a video saying, as a woke dog trainer, here's stuff that I do with my dog that will drive you nuts, sort of thing. And one of them is that my dog is on a vegan diet. And I didn't say why because I didn't need to. And also, if I'm being completely honest, I know that it's slightly inflammatory, so people will comment on it, and then you'll get a conversation started, right? And the first comment was like, can I inquire about why your dog's on a vegan diet? I was like, absolutely. I was like, my dog is allergic to every protein I have ever tried to feed him. So at the moment we're on vegan, we're stable, and then we will potentially look at introducing something else in the future. Great, she replies and she's like, great, thanks for your reply, that's really helpful, blah 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 blah. And the next comment just says, have you tried raw feeding? 9 out of 10 dogs with allergies are just reacting to all the crap that's in kibble, and it would probably go away if you raw fed the dog. Now, I went to see a holistic veterinarian last summer who, and to give you a bit of context, my dog has both skin and gut issues and has since he came home to us as a puppy. Um, Bless him, we have a lovely breeder, lovely litter, but Cheddar was just the little weakling, bless his little heart.
The special one.
And yeah, exactly. And so we've been experimenting with things to try and work out what the formula is, and the vet immediately put him on raw. And I know that you have to take 6 to 8 weeks to adjust to a diet, but he was on raw for I think 4 days, and I have never seen his skin so bad in those 4 days as the whole time we've had him, because his immune system just went, what the fuck is going on here? No. Um, so I was like, no, okay, this is stopping. I'm not going to push through this horrible, like he gets lesions and all of this stuff. I'm not doing this for 8 weeks to see if it works. No. And so the fact that somebody would comment that, I'm like, why do you have so much belief that this is like a magic wand technique for every animal? Like, I knew that people were going to be annoyed that I said he was on a vegan diet, sort of why I wrote it, whatever. But like, the answer then is not to come back and say, oh, you obviously haven't tried raw, because if you had, he wouldn't be on vegan. Anyway, I'm just rambling, but
No, well, no, it's very true. There is this, sort of like it's like a sort of a Tourette's, isn't it, on the internet? As soon as you mention food, along comes a mention about raw, and there are some dogs that do really well on it. There really are, but you don't hear about the ones that do badly because people try it and give up and then go and do something else and find something else that suits their dog, and they're not the ones like evangelical about it online. So you get this hugely skewed view. There's two interesting things that I would say to that. One is a lot of dogs, when they're allergic, have allergies to food mites. So mite allergies occur in about 90% of dogs that have atopy, so allergic disease. And food mites will live in any sort of kibble. It doesn't matter, any sort of room temperature stored food. As soon as you open the bag, that's it. It's like that disgusting fact, that disgusting fact about how much of your pillow is actually dust mites, if you were to weigh it.
yeah, I don't want to talk about that, Kat. I'm gonna hit the
No,
stop
nobody wants to
recording
talk
button
about
right now.
So a lot of the time when we're treating allergic dogs, what we're trying to do is remove as many allergens as possible to reduce their allergen load so they go below the threshold for them to react. And so one of the things that raw takes off the table is food mites, because food mites can't live in the freezer. And I'm like, well, that's great. I'm glad raw is working for you. But actually, do you know what? If you opened Chappie and fed them that, they, if they're one of these dogs, they'll do just the same. But of course, you don't, once you've found something that works, you stop trying. So that's fine. And the second thing isn't it amazing that we've got a vegan diet for dogs that is complete and balanced, that provides all the nutrients that he needs, the macro and the micro, and someone has made the effort to formulate and create it. And yes, it's an entirely human, ethical concept to be vegan. And yes, people want to make their pets vegan and your dog isn't supposed to be a vegan. And there's an ethical conversation to have around that. However, it's feeding a need, but in a way that is responsible. So allowing people to feed their dogs, a lot of people make that choice for veganism for ethical reasons, in a way that is safe for the animal. And because people have seen a market, created the diet, I don't know which one you're feeding, but there's one very well-known vegan food that's actually been formulated by a board-certified nutritionist, which is the top of the tree and exactly what you want for formulation.
What food is that?
Am I allowed? That's Omni.
Yes, that's what I feed.
Yeah, so there was a board-certified vet involved in the creation of that diet. So, again, I wouldn't choose to feed my dog a vegan diet. I would, feed her something else. But if and whether you're doing it for medicinal or ethical reasons, that option exists within the pet food market. These options all exist because someone has sat down and done in some companies anyway, sat down and done the research and created the diets. But even in the companies who haven't bothered to employ a nutritionist or anyone who seems to go on know about nutrition, one of my favourite things to do is go on a pet food website, because my algorithm is like yours, but it's full of pet food adverts and discussions, and see, do you actually have anybody creating your diets who knows what they're doing? And I would say 90% of the companies don't appear to, or certainly don't tell you about it. However, the research around it is so strong that it's really actually quite hard to go wrong. So yeah, I think it's great, and I'm so glad that Cheddar. Well, it's sad that he can't eat cheese if that's his name,
No, no.
but if it works for him,
He can manage a bit of dairy. It's look, we're still in investigation stage. You will feel my pain in the sense that this Monday he had a punch biopsy on his nose. So the
oh,
last couple of days have just been a battle to try and stop him from taking the scab off. But anyway, we're not 100% sure what it is, and to be honest, I could just have you on the phone for like 2 hours while you diagnose my dog for me. Um but it seems to flare up with anything, I want to say like strong, like any of the really meaty proteins, or I don't know, some really sugary veg and stuff. Anyway, so I put him on this omnisensitive. His poos are amazing. His skin isn't perfect yet, but it's a lot better, and he loves it. So I would feel bad if I was forcing it down his throat and he was like, "Oh God, I don't want this vegan crap." But he loves it, like absolutely loves it. Um, and would I feed? I am vegan, and would I feed him meat? Yes, I would. But he reacts to it. So he sort of did my job for me a little bit. I was like, oh great, this has worked out exceptionally well for my veganism. But yeah, it's not it's not a problem for us because he loves it, and it's helped him tenfold.
yeah, exactly. And proteins are the biggest allergen. So it's
Hmm.
the other fad is grain-free diets and wheat and gluten-free, and like the amount of animals that are sensitive to grains and or that wheat and gluten is single figures at the very most.
Hmm.
Um, but the amount that are allergic to chicken and beef is massive. The proteins are by
Yeah.
far the most allergenic. Um, if the diet is working, that's awesome because of dogs with allergies. A minority have food involvement. If I've got an allergic patient, generally the clients have tried several different diets and cycled through all sorts of things. Because you can control what goes in your dog's mouth. You can't control where they walk or what
Hmm.
flowers are pollinating. So if you've got one that responds to diet, that's fantastic. And the fact that
Mm.
these diets are available for them is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move on to, I don't know how this question's going to go, but we'll see. It'll go one way or
Yeah.
the
Oh
other.
yeah.
So, what do you think about supplements?
The clue is in the name. They are supplementary to stuff
Hmm.
that actually works. And the market is fantastically unregulated. So
Mm.
there's no particular requirement on manufacturers to, actually confirm that what they say is in their supplement is in there. And there's been independent testing done and be like, there's half the amount of the omega-3s, there's no vitamin E, all sorts of things. And the other thing I despise about this, well, there's loads I despise about the supplement market, actually. We could talk about this forever. One thing I despise is the vast majority are white labelled. So all of these companies that are like, oh, so they're made in a central factory by the same people and a different label is slapped on the packaging. So all of these ones, which is
Okay.
like, we really care and we've created a formula that is just absolutely fantastic. And you're like, this is the same as everybody else's. There's nothing, the
Mm.
marketing is the special thing about you, the different thing, or,
Hmm.
you're trying to make it. And I Googled the other day, there's one particular, and the other thing I despise is the marketing for supplements is out of control. Like it's worse than the food. I've got several saved up on my phone that I need to sort of, stick my head in front of and point
Mm.
out. There's one at the moment that's using AI, and I can't believe that any company, it's a really big supplement company, 100% has appeared on your Facebook feed, that's using AI saying this supplement clears tear staining in dogs. And there is a video of a dog being hose piped directly into its eye, and the eye is open and the dog is just standing there. And I'm like, this is so obviously fake. And you're claiming that your supplement, like, how have you, it's just jaw dropping that any company would do that. But
Mm.
I Googled this particular company because I needed some images for something or other. And what was really interesting was all the images at the top of the page for Google come up. The sales, the sort of sales ones.
Yeah.
Every
Hmm.
single one of these supplements was in a little round white tub, just with a different label on. And you're like, they're all coming out of the same factory. They're just putting different label on. And white labeling happens a
Scary.
lot. It happens in pet food. It happens in, it's like Aldi or other supermarkets are available that make similar things to other supermarkets. They're probably
Yeah.
all coming out of very similar facilities, just with different labels on the
Mm-hmm.
tin of beans or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes white labeling isn't bad. Like, to take it back to food, so for example, lots of pet food is white labelled, and what that means is there's these couple of huge anonymous factories in the UK that no one's ever heard of, churning out tons of pet food every day. And Sainsbury's or other supermarkets are available, can ring them up and go, we'd like to make a grain-free salmon and parsley diet, and they go, okay. But those companies employ PhD qualified nutritionists who formulate the diets, who put it all together, who create the food for the company. They put it all in. They make the cubbill, they put it in the bag, and then it goes off to wherever it's being sold. So actually, sometimes for brands which are sort of sometimes quite denigrated, they're actually being made by facilities that really know what they're doing. I just don't know enough about the supplement market to know if white labelling is adequate. It might be, but it annoys me because of the marketing that comes off the back of it. You're not special. You've just rung up a company. In fact, and again, I'll stop rambling in a minute. There's the other thing that comes up on my Facebook feed sometimes is an advert for, like, why don't you create your own supplement? It's really easy. Here's how to do it, and here's how to create an Amazon for sales page. Yeah. Facebook feeds me some strange things. And that's exactly what that is. You ring up this factory, get them to put some labels on it, slap it on Amazon with a good story. You can make your fortune. So that's, so in terms of how I, as a professional, approach supplements, which I think is probably the question you asked me about half an hour ago, is I do recommend supplements. The clue is in the name. They're supplementary. There is evidence to suggest that they are helpful, but it is not nearly as, if you've got a limited budget and you've got an arthritic dog, spend your money on the pain relief. Don't spend your money on a magic supplement. But if it is affordable and achievable for you, yes, let's get them on a supplement as well. It's not going to harm them, and it may well do an awful lot of good. But the ones I recommend are the ones that take a pharmaceutical approach to creating their supplements, so they operate on the same level as the pharma companies, who are incredibly regulated. So there are a few brands that I will comfortably recommend to my clients. We do sell one of them in the practice, but most of them are available online, so I don't make any money. I just write the names down and, you can take this box while you're here, or you can go and buy it online. But if you're going to buy it, buy one of these 3 for skin, for joints, for gut health is a whole different. The microbiome is incredibly fascinating. We don't have nearly enough evidence yet. We can't say anything for sure, but there's certainly some good gut supplements that probably do help. But I am fantastically cynical. It annoys me intensely. The marketing is out of control, and sometimes I get clients who are spending so much money,
I know,
and actually it's becoming unaffordable, and they're very stressed and they're trying really, really hard, and and then you say, well, why don't we just stop it all, because it's not making any difference. And that's the first time they've ever received messaging like that.
Yeah. I had an email a few weeks ago from a guy, some supplement company, offering me like a commission structure on supplements for my clients. I pondered it for all of about 3 seconds, and then I replied saying I just don't feel ethically like I can do that, because I would just be selling them something that I really don't have very much faith in whatsoever. Not to mention the fact that, it's probably something I'd hand over to the vet anyway. It's not really in my area of expertise to offer that sort of advice, but I just thought, like, I don't know, it just felt dirty. Like it was sold to me as a sales pitch, and they're really targeting the wrong professionals, because we're here because we love and care about animals, not because we want to be millionaires. We're in the wrong job if that was the case. But yeah, and I have the adverts come up. This cured my dog's separation anxiety. Oh, give me strength. Like, and people comment tagging their family members. Oh, try this, and I just go on there being like, this is bollocks. Ignore everything they're saying. Don't listen to anything. And just completely ruin their whole marketing strategy, because it's just like you say, not all of them obviously are a con. We're just generalizing because it is the Wild West in terms of supplements. You can't tell
It,
who's who,
it's
can you?
it's horrific, and as a general rule of thumb, if they tell you it's cured something, well, telling you it's cured something is actually illegal. So the ASA can take those down, and the VMD can as well. But anything that says don't use these awful medicines, or this is a miracle cure, or statements like that, don't touch them with a barge pole, because they're lying to you. And that's why the supplements that are good will never use marketing like that. They don't, they can't, and those companies have the integrity not to. Which is why they're not nearly so popular online, because they don't use that kind of marketing is unfortunately phenomenally effective. And I think that's as a general rule for food as well. If they're guilt tripping or shaming or negative in any way, don't buy it. Just don't buy it.
So, to finish up then, before I let you go to your evening, are there any other modern trends in anything to do with pet care that you and your fellow vets are sick of seeing and you want to tell me about it now? Because I love your opinions.
Okay, just give me a sec to think about this. You might have to chop this bit out while I think. Modern
That's all right.
trends.
To be honest, I've had half a glass of champagne now and I feel a bit squiffy because it's very warm in here. So, um,
Oh, well,
were you aware of the green juice thing that went around,
oh
I
yeah,
want to say
the
last
turtle
year or the
juice.
year before? Did that die off
Yeah.
quite quickly though?
Well, I think they went underground because they learned that if they put it online, people would see it and report it. And I know the VMD are desperate to. Well, they don't. They never tell you the outcomes of their investigations, which is annoying because they're a government agency. But I know they're desperate to get on top of it. But I think they really struggle because it's all underground Excel bully
Yeah,
breeders and drug dealers who are quite good at
yeah,
avoiding authority. Um,
yeah, yeah.
So, modern trends. I think. So here's the things when it comes to modernity that I do like. I like doodles, which I know is a controversial opinion, but I don't understand why people don't like them. I think the vast majority are actually quite sweet, happy little dogs that make pretty good family pets. And yes, some are anxious and some are allergic, but the majority of them are absolutely fine. Treating your pet like a baby is too far. Treating your pet like a family member is great. I
Hmm.
know we like to sort of
Hmm.
side eye at that kind of thing, and I think as long the vast majority of people understand the difference between their dog and their child, it does make me roll my eyes slightly that they say this dog is my child, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I am a mother. Um, the dog isn't anywhere close to how I, genuinely feel about the children. But I do
Hmm.
love the dog. But there is a difference. But if that's how
I
you wish to
mean,
play it, that's absolutely fine.
we refer in this house to myself and my partner as Cheddar's biological parents. So maybe you and I are going to have differing opinions. We don't want kids, so he's the biological son,
He's the
and
baby.
you'll never convince me otherwise. Sorry.
I birthed him. I think you'll find.
I did, I
And
did.
that's
I don't remember doing
yeah.
it, but I definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fine as long as it doesn't tip over into treating it like a baby. Like you're not going to be able
Mm.
to get him in a handbag, but, let's not try. Um, but I think I'm going to have to say raw food, and I think that's, ugh. I hate to say it because I just the
Because you're
spine
going to get a
comes with
brick
razor
through your
blade.
window.
Probably, but there is no. If you wish to feed your animal raw food, you go right ahead. There is absolutely no reason to do so, though. You know,
Hmm.
and this is not a controversial or unusual opinion. That there just isn't. And yes, it does. I think vet professionals do roll their eyes at people a little nicely because we love our clients and we work with them and all of that. We do roll our eyes gently at it because it just it causes a lot of problems and doesn't solve as many as people think, as you have found out yourself. But our job, like I said before, is it's teamwork and collaboration and communication. And if that's what you want to do, then that's absolutely fine. Let's work with you to achieve it in a sensible and safe way.
Brilliant. Great. So we're almost done. I will get you to give me a key takeaway from today, you might tell me that that is your raw feeding one, but if people remember one
Oh
thing from
God,
this
no.
episode, what would you like them to remember?
I would love people to remember that your veterinary staff at your practice do know about nutrition. They do. And if you have any questions about food, they are your first port of call. Pick up the phone, pop in, send them a text. We have a texting system for our clients, and ask the question, and you will receive a well educated and sensible answer. So, just the vet profession does know about nutrition. Just the internet would have you believe that we don't.
And I think just to add to that, in my own experience and having vet friends and working with vets, they do have your best interests at heart. People will have you think that vets are millionaires living in massive high-rise mansions with swimming pools and Rolls Royces, but that's really not the case.
That isn't the case. I have to say though, we do have a swimming pool in the summer, but it is a plastic one that I bought from Costco that's approximately 2 centimeters square. But my children love it.
You're getting far too high above your station, Kat. I'm afraid to tell you, I no longer trust you. Cool. Before I let you go, is there anything you would like to advertise, or how can people find you if they want to follow your work?
Yep. No, I have nothing to advertise. People ask me this quite often. I think maybe I should, but I
Advertise
don't.
Kat's new supplement range.
Yes. That the internet and Amazon told me how to make. No, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok as Cat the Vet. It would be lovely to join me. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
Oh, thank you so much, Kat. Where's my mouse gone? Right, there we go.